Welcome to Brighten Your Stitch, and this is my beginner embroidery series, and today we're going to be talking about the embroidery basics, which is how to pull from your embroidery skein, how to pull individual strands, what that even means, and how to tie off your thread at the end. So when we look at our embroidery skein, we're going to be specifically focusing on the numbers and the barcode side. So it's very important that we only pull from this side and not the short tag side. If you pull from the short tag side, you're going to have a huge tangle on your hands. So pull about an arm's length. I talk about this in the PDF pattern. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, but it depends on how you thread your needle. So in order to get the individual strands, because you'll notice that embroidery floss is made up of 6 individual threads or strands. You're not always going to be working with all 6 of them at the time, and even if you are working with 6, I still recommend pulling them and doubling them over just because it makes it so much easier to pass through the fabric. So I'm fraying out the end, I'm holding the thread in between my index finger and my thumb, I'm identifying a thread that I want to pull, and I'm just making sure the rest are out of the way. And I'm going to gently pull. And you'll notice it bunching up around my fingers. That's totally fine. The most important thing about this is that you only pull 1 strand at a time. If you try to pull 2 or more, you're just going to end up with a big tangle on your hands, and you can just use the pulling apart method that I also discuss in my PDF pattern, but I'm only going to show you this one just because I think it's so much easier and it's going to save so much frustration for you if you do it this way. When selecting your needle, it depends on how many threads I'm working with. If I'm working with like 6, I'm going to choose something with a bigger needle eye. If I'm working with less, I can work with a smaller needle. All is good. Then what you're going to do, put your thread together end to end, run your fingers over it just to make sure they're stuck together. Lick your thread and then flatten the ends of your thread with your fingers. That should help thread your needle faster. Otherwise, you can use needle threaders or hooks, or you can select a larger needle if you're really struggling. This is method 1 of threading your needle, which is where you leave 1 loose short end and then you have 1 long end that just has a knot at the end. This is great for undoing your mistakes, especially for beginners. The downside to this is that short end can be really fiddly to work with, and sometimes I find myself struggling when I only have so much thread left before I need to tie it off. Now, for method 2 is when you double up your thread and then you fold it over and you knot it together at the end. This is my preferred way of doing it. I think it just comes out cleaner. I think it's easier to work with, but it is a little bit harder to undo your mistakes. That's the downside to it. So you can just see me knotting it together and then pulling it. Just make sure all of the threads are nice and neat, otherwise they'll cause you issues as you continue embroidering. So for tying off our thread, I'm going to start by making a couple stitches just to show you how to tie it off. Also, you notice that I pushed my thread all the way into the corner. Don't do that. Stay organized and make sure that your extra thread does not become part of your scrap thread pile. Very costly mistake. Now, tying off is very important, especially for clothing. You want to make sure your knots are very secure so they're not becoming undone in the wash. You're going to first select a stitch that you can run your needle through, making a loop. Feed your needle through that loop, and you're going to be making something called a slip knot. Then you're going to repeat this again. This makes it extra secure, and then you're ready to trim it. When you trim, you want to make sure that you're trimming it short but not all the way close to the knot, and you're ready to start stitching. So happy stitching and hop right into step 1.